Final hour overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel. Bryan Hayes, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. The O-Dog will be back in a moment. Little panel work ahead of the Leaf game tonight. Not only the Leafs, you got a bunch of games throughout the NHL. And all 7 Canadian teams in action tonight. You got 3 all-Canadian matchups, which is great. And then Ottawa down in Carolina.
Full docket. I love it. I mean, it's going to be a late night for everybody. I mean, McDavid, by the time they drop the puck in Vancouver, it's a 10 o'clock start. They're going to have their opening ceremony.
10:25.
10:20, 10:25, around there. So it'll be a late night. Interested to see Calgary-Winnipeg, how that one unfolds, too.
Absolutely.
And then, Ottawa, Carolina, Montreal, Toronto. And then Bedard is playing Boston.
In Boston. I saw, I believe it was released, ESPN. That game
numbers,
did, like $1.47 million, which is the highest non-Winter Classic rating.
That's good.
On cable for an NHL game, which is pretty incredible. And it was the best of both worlds because Bedard has been so hyped, and the fact that he went to Chicago is a big part of that, let's be honest. A lot of that viewership is probably coming from Chicago. Sure. And then you've got Pittsburgh, which everyone's been familiar with for 20 years because of Sid. And I saw that crazy stat that was going around last night. 18 seasons now of Letang, Malkin, and Sid. And that matches the 18 seasons of the 3 famous Yankees. Who was it? Jeter, Posada, and Rivera, I believe it was.
Wow.
Which is pretty incredible that you've been teammates for that long.
18 years.
Yes.
Wow. Like it is impressive.
This is season 18 of Sid, Malkin, and Letang.
Yeah. Well, they all have game left. I mean, Letang had a couple good plays last night. Gino looks still strong. He looks like he's lost a step, but
that's the concern in Pitt. They're an old team.
Yeah, there's lots of miles.
Really old team.
If they are Lamborghinis, they are Lamborghinis with 380,000 kilometers on them. Doesn't mean they're still not beautiful and
they
run
get
fast.
82,000 more kilometers.
Well, that's the thing.
That's the question.
Can you do it? But
I don't know.
They've got some youngsters around them, pretty good team, but they're in one. Like I think them, Washington, we talked about those tweener teams, the Islanders, like they're all going to be battling in that kind of, because I think New Jersey's really good and I think Carolina's really good. So in that Metro division, that's, I think it's Jersey and Carolina that are the 2, elite teams there. And then everyone else will be pushing.
Yeah. And the Rangers, a lot of people pencil them in as a playoff team.
Well, I think they're a playoff team, but it's more if those young kids can take a step. Kako, Lafreniere, to me, Hedel, I always butcher his name.
Hedel. He's a good player.
He's a very good player. Keandre Miller's a really good defenseman. Like they've got some players there. And the goalie by his standards, 2 years ago, it was him and Vasilevsky were that good. Shesterkin wins the
Vezina is up for the heart,
for the heart. But people still are like, Vasilevsky is still the best goalie on the planet. Now Shesterkin took a step back, which even his step back was kind of like the Matthews step back from 60 to 40. It was still great goaltending, but he had set the bar so high the year before. If Shesterkin gets back to anywhere in between that, the Rangers will look pretty decent.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. I mean, you're going to ride they got a lot of talent. They got a good defense. Adam Fox is a great player.
Yeah.
Trouba's a good player. You mentioned that Miller kid. He's not a kid anymore. He's probably year 3 now, I guess. Yeah, but he's still relatively young. He's a young player. He's a really good player. But yeah, I mean, early on in the season, we were joking about it a couple of hours ago, the overreaction Thursday that happens throughout the league. The same thing I'm sure is happening today in Seattle, Pittsburgh, Nashville. They're like, all right, you lost a game. It didn't go your way. What does this mean?
Right.
But, Tampa looked good. Kucherov looked good. Point looked good.
How was your drafts last night or whatever?
It went all right. Like it was a bit of a wild scene because I had one live, like my dad does it live.
Right.
We're at a place called Carbuzzi on Avenue Road. Great spot, cool spot. Yeah. Upstairs, kind of old school. And you just get a real collection of people, a different collection of characters. Yes, because now, like, it's been going on for so long that there's filtered through people that used to be in his pool. I remember guys 30 years ago who probably haven't been in the pool for 20 years.
Yeah.
And the same thing, I did one online with a bunch of my buddies that we started 20 years ago when we were in school. And there have been guys that were mainstays for 7, 8 years in that pool, and they haven't been in it for 12, 13 years.
And now they're back, or
no? They're you just filter in, you just keep it alive. There's like 5 or 6 guys that have been in it forever, and then other people have just kind of come and gone. That's the nature of life, I guess, right, Noodles?
Did you get any good picks?
I got a couple of. You know what? I got Cale Makar in both pools.
Oh, wow.
I feel like Makar, like, to me, it's not as clear cut as what McDavid is to like forwards and to point getters. Like
right.
McDavid is the clear cut king of the NHL.
Right.
Best player in the league, best center in the league. He's going to accumulate the most points. Like, it would be a legit shock if he played 82 games and he didn't run away with the Art Ross.
Right.
Not just win it. Like, win it by 15 plus points.
Right.
That's generally the expectation. I think Cale Makar is close to that in terms of being the definitive, like, best defenseman in the league.
Right.
Now, he's not as rounded as other guys, but I guess you could apply the same thing to McDavid. It's not like McDavid's winning Selkies.
No, you're right. Like,
But,
there
like,
is warts in everyone's game.
Everyone's game. But, like, for me, I feel like Makar, I wouldn't be shocked if he touched up on 100 points.
Well, he had 66 points in 60 games last year.
Yeah.
86 points the previous year in 77 games. So if he has a healthy season,
100
right, like
seems
90
very,
to
almost
100 points.
reasonable.
Yeah, it seems like that would be the next progression.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that, like we talked about it when the TSN Top 50 was coming out, who has a chance at attacking McDavid at 1? And I feel like it's that guy. Like, if he puts up a couple seasons in a row where he is a clear-cut best defenseman,
yeah,
that's basically the only shot you got until Bedard gets into year 3, 4, and then McDavid's hit 30, and the roles will reverse,
right.
like he did with Sid and McDavid 9 years ago.
Man, oh man. Yeah, this
Happens quick.
It does happen quick, but
Happens
Makar
quick.
is special. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. No, there's no question about that. So, we talk about Toronto being a leave town, and I remember, and it's gone both ways, like going to Blue Jay games when the Jays were really struggling down the stretch, and go Leaf, go chants would start. And conversely, I remember when the Leafs were in a bad place, probably in that 15 season, probably the most recent example before when they were tanking for Matthews, and that's when Bautista and the ALCS back-to-back years, you'd hear go Jays go chants at Scotiabank Arena, which is kind of awkward. And we saw that last night. We heard it last night. Penguins opener. Bedard and the Blackhawks are in town. Again, the Steelers are in a good place.
Yeah.
Like, the Steelers are 3-2. They're leading the AFC North. They just beat a big divisional rival in Baltimore. And Matt Canada is the offensive coordinator. And they hate him in Pittsburgh. They've only put up 79 points on the season. It's pretty incredible that they're leading the division. They have a minus point differential, but that defense is so good. Why don't we play it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
It was pretty loud, and like everyone was on board.
Really?
It sounded like basically the whole upper bowl, and then I'm sure it leaked into the lower bowl. It was like, yeah, we can get behind this. Jeez. Let's play it. This is last night in that Pittsburgh game. Like, that's during play. That's really loud.
Yeah.
That's really loud. And I got to think there's a number of players that would have been in the stands or on the bench or whatever that don't know who Matt Canada is. And like, why is Canada?
Why are they saying
like Bedard's Canadian? Is Sid's Canadian? Is he sitting there saying, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
Why are you firing my country?
Wow. I mean,
that's a level of anger that you don't see too often.
It's anger. It's passion. That fan base is passionate down there.
They love the Steelers, man.
Pittsburgh's a gritty city, but it's they love their teams and they covet them. So I think like even the Penguins losing last night, there would have been some people that had chapped asses today.
Sure.
Fan base and all that. Like just the expectations, kind of one kick at the can again. Dubas has been doing and saying all the right things down there.
Kev Sullivan, right?
Let me ask you this. What is the fan base now? Where are they at with Dubas?
In Toronto?
Yeah, here. Like I had one buddy say to me the other day, is like, I want them to go 0-82.
I don't really.
Know why.
He was very polarizing. He was, and what he did was he really ignited, not intentionally, old school, new school, right? He takes over for Lou. When he's hired, it's been a really quick ascension for him. He went from the first hire I believe Shanahan made was bringing in Dubas.
Right.
And it was when he was hired, it was this is the analytical whiz kid. This is the guy who's going to change the game.
Yeah.
And when he got the job, we asked him point blank, like, your philosophy is being challenged, the way that you operate. Are you willing to go down with the ship here? And he basically said, I'm going to put my career on it.
Yeah.
I'd never won, and his career has only continued to improve in terms of his title and the amount of money he makes and the amount of power and autonomy he has in team building, because he's in a better place in Pittsburgh than he was in Toronto, undoubtedly.
Yeah, for power and all that money, yeah.
And, he took over for Lou, who, Hall of Famer, old school, blah, blah, blah. So I think what he represented, and it was probably unfair to him because he wasn't asking for it,
right,
was there are a lot of Leaf fans that just immediately were like, I don't like this guy. It's soft. He wants, he wants Geno Malgin in the lineup, and he wants to be small and puck moving, and you got to be tough, and you got to have blue collar players. So I don't think he ever overcame that, even though his moves would suggest he did change. Yeah. Like, he did bring in some size and some muscle, and he was active at the deadline. And
but you wonder.
But I don't know why it ever got personal, but it did. Like, there are a lot of Leaf fans who are like, I just can't stand him as the GM, not like the person. Obviously,
no, we're not hating on him. It was a very unique comment made to me about, like, I don't want to see them have success, and I was like, why?
Yeah, I don't get
Sidney
it.
Crosby's a great guy,
Like, if he went to Ottawa or Montreal or something, I could understand that. If you're a Leaf fan,
moved to Pittsburgh. But it just, I did their game live the other day, and I watched their team, and I ran into Jason Spetz afterwards. Had a nice little chat with him. Like, very likable, great guy. Like, and we've only met, like, I've met Kyle several times. We've had him on the show.
Yep.
Like, Kyle's always been very affable to us. It just, I don't know if it didn't work here. They had tremendous regular seasons. They just didn't have the success in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So, he built a pretty good program here, and he's moved on. But it's interesting. I was asking more out of just curiosity. Is there people that are just indifferent, or are they like, no, we want to see, like, there's still some hard feelings?
I think because the debates were so
polarizing. Right?
Yeah, and like there was a lot of vitriol there. Like, Leaf fans, going at it about, and listen, Dubas was lucky because he had a lot of people that just simply supported him because of what they thought he represented.
Right.
Which I think is also silly. That he is new school, he is analytically driven, so I'm just going to love every move he makes.
Right.
Which, again, is an impossible...
No, you can't do that.
Bar to set. Yeah, exactly. And it's also unfair to Dubas or any GM because no one's going to be perfect.
No.
You're all going to make mistakes. You're all going to do the wrong thing. But it also became this thing like Dubas, he could make a mistake in the eyes of some big Dubas fans, which I think was very frustrating for a lot of people within the, their own circles.
Right.
If you had a big Dubas guy, it was like, no, that was the right move, and clearly it wasn't. Right. And conversely, you'd hate on guys that didn't like his philosophy or his team building would drag on every single move he made, and he made a lot of really smart plays.
Yeah,
and that'll continue in Pittsburgh. He'll make good plays. He'll make mistakes. I think he's in for one at Pitt. I do. I don't think they're a lock to make the playoffs. I could see them getting in.
Yeah,
for sure. And that's not based on last night. It is 81 more games, but they missed last year. I think he improved their team. I do. I think bringing in Carlson, who will eventually settle in and fit in. Yeah. Riley Smith, Achari. Yeah, but they're an old team. Like, they're a few injuries away, more so than I think other teams.
Right.
That I don't think they've got depth within the organization. They don't have youth they can really rely on.
Yeah.
Brian Russ scored last night. He's a good player. He's in his 30s.
Yeah.
Gensel's getting up there.
Well,
Gino, Jeff Carter.
I look at that group, and you're right. Like, this is the window this year or next year to at least be very competitive and be a playoff team. But I just was more about this market. Like, are they indifferent when Pittsburgh plays here in Toronto? Will Dubas get?
It'll be a big story. I think the media will drive it.
But will he get a video tribute?
No, I don't think. I don't know if he'd do that with management. I don't think so. I don't think so. And listen, that would be a classy move,
right?
I don't get the impression Shanahan and Dubas are necessarily best friends right now or anymore. It felt like that kind of the relationship ended on a pretty sour note.
Yeah, a very stunning note for all of us.
And Shanahan was pretty open and honest about that on the record in the way he saw it kind of play out. But I think that would be probably a classy gesture by Shanahan Probably be his decision. Yeah, sure. He worked in the organization for a long time.
Well, Brendan hired him.
Absolutely.
He
was here for 8 years, I believe it was.
And they had a long-standing relationship. They did some good things here. I think you let water under the bridge.
Yeah,
now,
it's over.
The wounds might be too fresh, though. Like, when does he play up here? I haven't checked the schedule.
I'm not sure when Pittsburgh's
When is
here, right?
Pittsburgh up here so that the big story is not going to be the Penguins versus the Leafs. It's going to be the return of Kyle Dubas.
Yes, and that will. I don't expect he'll do media that day. He'll be up here for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's looking forward to seeing people he hasn't seen for a while.
The Grappler just said it's December 16th.
December 16th.
So
Is that a Saturday night game?
I don't know, but that's
Feels like it's a Saturday night game.
It is a Saturday night game.
Yes.
Pittsburgh at Toronto Maple.
So there you go. That's a hockey night, Saturday night.
Yeah.
I think it'd be in his best interest to sit down and speak, though, also. Like, get that out of the way. But it's not generally in the nature of GMs to make themselves the story.
Right.
They're generally not that comfortable doing that. Dubas has not, to my knowledge, done anything with Toronto media since he left.
Yeah.
We've requested him on this show, although that was the same. When he was in Toronto, he didn't come on here the last 2 years.
Didn't come on for 2 years?
He was not on here for 2 years. Not that I was counting or keeping track. But the requests went in.
Yeah.
Start of the year, trade deadline, end of the season. When you coming on, Kyle?
We had Austin
Never
Matthews
happened.
on yesterday.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Listen, I've always said that there's no obligation. It's not mandatory. We don't pay people to come on.
Right.
They want to come on, they come on. Historically, they always did.
Yeah.
Now we'll see what happens.
I think we'll get.
We'll see what happens.
Maybe a month in, we'll get Tree on or something.
Yeah, well, he was on with the First Up guys the other day. Yesterday, I guess it was.
Yeah, I think they did. On both stations, everybody they kind of spread it out, which I actually like.
I think that's a good play.
Because it sounds like Morgan Riley and I think Mitch Marner and I think Tree
Tavares
and
Trey
Tavares
Living
and
Sheldon, I think, was
Sheldon
doing the rounds.
There was lots of people
Why
moving
not?
and shaking.
Get a lot of people want to talk to.
Exactly.
Get out there, have a little chat.
Yeah.
Go time tonight. Leafs Habs right here on TSN Radio. We'll tee it up throughout the hour. Darren Dreger coming up. The O-Dog will be back as well. We got our best bets brought to you by FanDuel still to come. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Matthews, anytime goal scorer. Minus money on that. Like, FanDuel is basically saying we'd be surprised if he doesn't score tonight. But opening night,
Yeah.
we know what happened. Was that 8 years ago? We were in Ottawa.
Has he scored in every opening night? Like, what is his?
I don't
what
think
is
it's
his
every.
stats in the 7 years he's done it.
I think he scored a lot. He started off, basically, he could cruise through the first 4 years because of what he did opening night.
Right.
Like a goal per game through 4 years for the opener because he scored 4 his first game.
Right. But I feel like he has always kind of scored in that first game. But it wouldn't shock me if he's had 7 openers. I'd say he scored in at least 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say his total, I'll say 9 goals opening. He had 4 again the first. I remember he had a couple a few years ago. He might have 10 already through 7 seasons opening night.
Yeah,
he might have 10.
Yeah.
10 plus. So I got Matthews anytime goal scorer tonight, over 6.5 goals in a game tonight. We said it earlier.
Sloppy.
I could see a 4-3 game tonight, 5-3 game tonight. Caulfield 3+ shots on net. Nylander 4+ shots on net, paying plus 527 tonight. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Same game parlays are now available for every NHL game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 18 plus, physically located in Ontario. Given the wave in for Dregs.
Oh, I love
Darren
it.
Dreger.
Yeah.
Very obnoxious move when you give someone the come on over.
Was that the Vladdy wave?
Yeah, the wave.
The Vladdy wave?
The wave. Check on that.
Yeah,
I'm
check on
safe.
that.
I know I'm safe. Meanwhile, he's out by 2 feet. Dregs, he didn't wave over? O's over there. What's he doing over there? He's doing
drove
panel
over,
work?
but he's stuck in the car.
Did he drive?
And I kind of want to wait until he gets here to bring this up. But I literally just counted the number of steps from Studio 6 to this studio, the OverDrive studio. It was 147 steps.
Right.
Okay.
He drives, and I walked the 147
But
steps.
earlier in the show, I don't know if you heard the 4 o'clock hour, he's driving a new vehicle right now. So
he's not happy either.
And
why is that?
Well, he had an incident.
He's had some issues.
Stolen.
Yeah.
So,
Again.
but they gave him like Mr. Bean's car. So it's Harry and the Henderson. So you walked over, he drove. Were you able to?
Okay. So this reminds me, God rest his soul. You remember the Leafs went to Sweden many, many years ago. I think there was a training camp there.
Yes.
We did a spoof with Wade Belak at the time, where it was Wade's World, and once every couple of days he'd do something silly. You know, he's making Swedish meatballs one time and eating raw beef and the whole nonsense. And we had him driving a smart car. And he's a big man. Belak was a big
massive
dude. But to make it even more ridiculous, he sat on a couple of pillows so his head was out the sunroof. Smart car. It looked like he was driving like a go-kart.
Where I'm at.
If you were in Stockholm, they don't do big cars over there, man. They don't do trucks.
No.
Stuffing you into a smart car in Stockholm would be outstanding content.
But that's the problem, because I have short legs and a long torso, so I can't.
So you got a seat that's close.
Trust me. A lot of the times we do the Hall of Fame game, and our seats down there are wooden stools that don't go up and down. And the first couple of years, Bobby McKenzie looked at me and he said, like, what are you, some kind of giant WWF wrestler that I'm not aware? And I'm like, dude, I'm really, the torso's really tall.
Yeah.
Elongated
That'll get you,
torso.
man.
That's
Yeah,
what
the
he's
torso will get you in a car. Get you at the Hall of Fame game, too, man. You never know when it's going to get you.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dregs, good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Everything's all good in the league. It seems like a big topic is teams going 11-4 with 6D.
Yeah.
I saw Ray had some great tweets about that today, where he's like, it's just a goofy start. Like, I get it's a hard salary cap, all that.
Yeah.
But it's still, you're playing the first night of the season. LA, I think, is going 11-6. Ottawa's going 11-6.
Yeah.
Just a weird look, man.
Greg, speaking of 11 or Ottawa, like that Pinto situation in Ottawa, how did they leave it to this? Like,
Yeah.
He just seems like such an important thing. I don't know why they left it where it's like, oh, now we got to figure this out. Apparently now he's in Ottawa, but
skating,
it seems silly that he didn't get to camp somehow.
Well, I mean,
it takes two to tango. I do understand that.
But and both sides have been trying, but there's a deal that's ready there, right? It's not like Shane Pinto is looking for the moon. He's looking for $2.5 million, likely on a 2-year bridge, and there probably wouldn't be another team in the league that wouldn't give him that because of the quality of the hockey player here. Where Dorian got himself in trouble is there was a knee-jerk reaction post Alex Brinket, and he signs Vladimir Tarasenko probably more quickly than he should have, but he still had lots of time to eradicate any sort of cap situation. It's 100% cap related, but you know who's in the crosshairs now? Is DJ Smith and the coaching staff. Right? Because the expectation in that city, based on their schedule, is they need to have a strong start. And historically, they have not had a strong start. Well, if they don't have a strong start and they're down 2 key centers, who ultimately takes the fall? Right. Probably the head coach. Now, that's predicting doom and gloom, and I guess there's no reason to do that. But with Norris on the sidelines with an undetermined injury and a cap situation in Ottawa that's borderline mind-boggling, that's a tough one to start the year with.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
They don't have a room. They don't have room for air here.
No.
Like we've talked about it. Like that division alone, the Atlantic division, and I think the Pacific are probably going to be. On paper, it looks like the 2 strongest.
That's what I mean, Noodles. Like a start is really important to Ottawa.
Has to be.
It has to be.
Yeah, but they've retained salary. They bought guys out, right? Like
it's been,
mistakes have kind of jammed you up. They're
but
not
you got to
alone,
be more willing than, the name that keeps getting tossed out there is Matthew Joseph.
Right.
But it's that 3-year contract where teams are going, no. Like,
not taking it.
He
we're
makes
okay with
2.85, doesn't he?
Yeah, we're okay with the player, but we don't like the term. So, what's the sweetener? Which prospect? What draft pick are you giving us into this stage? Dorian hasn't been willing to do it, but it's a jam that they shouldn't be in.
Right, exactly.
All kidding aside.
No, yeah,
they
exactly.
shouldn't be in it.
And it would help if Josh Norris was playing, clearly.
Yeah.
And like that one I can't figure out because I'm seeing, Claire is sending emails, Bruce Garriock sending different tweets out. Like one day he's skating, the next he's not, or he's in a non-contact jersey, then he's practicing.
Either
in a regular
shut him down
jersey.
or put a regular.
What the
jersey
hell's
on.
going on with this guy?
That's the part that doesn't add up, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I've heard that he's been bothered by this dating back to the off-season training. Skating, he was bothered by that shoulder. Well, if that's the situation, when you go into training camp, do the medical people not say, okay, we've got to send this guy to a specialist? I mean, it was surgically repaired after they decided it didn't need to be surgically repaired until it did need to be surgically repaired, and now he's got soreness, stiffness, and whatever else. So get the specialists involved and determine whether or not it is structural. Or, as DJ Smith alluded to a week or so ago, which probably wasn't right, is this a mental hurdle that the player is going to have to get over?
And the other thing, too, is it's not like he's 31. He's 23. And he's and they've banked on him being a big part of that core in the future. They've signed him for that.
Paid him.
He scored 35 goals 2 years ago in 68 games. He's a hell of a player when he's healthy, but he's not healthy, and that's scary. It's scary for the organization going, hey, we're missing our number 2 centerman because Stutzler's going to be their number 1.
Yeah.
But secondly, you're scared for the player going, if this isn't right, you've had 2 shoulder injuries, you've got to make sure you're 100% coming back so that you're confident enough to play and not just play for a week and then go, geez, it's not going well. You want him to play for 5 years straight and not have any issues.
But how difficult is that, though? I just mentioned a minute ago, I was told that he was bothered by it to some degree in the summer. You guys are young players. That's probably the last thing you want to tell anybody going into camp, isn't it? Or are you better off to say, you know what, something's not right here again?
Dude, that shoulder stuff, was it a labrum that he had dealt with? Whatever the shoulder is. I came to Toronto in my very first period playing with the Maple Leafs. I jumped over Hasek. I went into the net, and I put my arm up to protect myself, and I blew my labrum out right again, first period.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if people wonder why I can't stand John Ferguson Jr., because I blew out my labrum, and somehow him or the doctors couldn't see it on the MRI until the end of the season. I'm like, yeah, you blew your labrum out. Thanks, Fergie. Yeah. Thanks.
Fergie. Dr. Fergie.
Fergie's looking at the MRI.
Fergie and Gary Roberts are reading
it was
MRI.
a mishandled situation. It was just it was nonsense.
Well, let's take a step further on that. In today's world, the doctors, they've got to look out for themselves, too. This is their reputation, their career. They're not going to go, you know what, wave him through just because we need him in the lineup. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's too much at stake.
Yeah, of course. That'd be malpractice.
Exactly.
You can't do it. But
they've got great doctors up there. The organization's going to do what's best to protect the player. The player has to do what's best for him to protect himself, too.
Sure.
So,
but the team's got to go out and play. But it doesn't matter where he's at. Exactly.
Carolina.
You're playing Carolina, and if you're in Ottawa, all eyes are on you because a lot of people are pumping your tires. Yeah. A lot of people believe it's your time to finally make that step, and if they don't, you got a new owner in there. He's not beholden to anyone not named Steve Staios.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's it. He's hired Staios, and then the rest, who knows what
And he
could
said
happen.
Repeatedly, publicly, everyone will be held accountable. And that's not a threat. That's just how he goes about his business.
Right. Yeah. And that's another thing. You want to combine the two if you're in Ottawa. New owner, take a next step, make the playoffs. This could be a really positive story.
Could be.
Well, and
probably
we had
will be.
Staios on the show, what was that, last week?
Yeah.
And he said it, I think, twice in the interview. Michael Andlauer has a standard that he wants everyone to live up to. Mm-hmm. So everyone's going to be held accountable, or the way that he wants to run that organization. If he doesn't feel somebody toeing the line, they're not going to be there.
Absolutely. Leafs Habs tonight. When it comes to the Leafs, we were kind of joking about this a couple hours ago, Dregs, that at the end of the season, there's always disappointment. People are riled up. People are making all these bold statements that they're not coming back, or they're finished with this guy, finished with that guy. And yet, it'll be a packed house tonight. People are excited. There's a new goal song coming. It seems to be a pretty quiet, relaxed, but confident vibe around this team. I don't know what you're picking up
Yeah,
on.
I think that's fair, but that goes with the expectation too.
Sure.
And that's not going to change until you get to the regular season. Like, who doesn't think that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to challenge to win the division? They should. Otherwise, there's a pretty big disappointment, right? Beyond that, we've talked about it on various panels. Yeah, there's always question marks. Is Tyler Bertuzzi going to be the right fit on the wing with Matthews and Marners? Can Nyes take another step? I mean, developmentally, he's been terrific, but can he build off that? Fraser Minton for me is a stretch. I still think that he's likely headed back to Kamloops, and then you dive into their defensive core, and for me, that's the only question mark that's written in ink, not in pencil, is whether or not Klingberg can find his form again and be what they need him to be. Otherwise, Brad Treliving has tinkered with this lineup in signing the one-year deals that he did, moving out Lafferty to the Vancouver Canucks. If that defense doesn't deliver, then he's going to have to get his hands dirty. How does he do that? What does he use for assets to bring that piece? Who is that player? We don't know any of that yet, but that would be an area to watch.
Yeah, that I would think would have to factor in with like a major move like signing William Nylander to an extension.
Yeah.
That he's been very forthright and committed to publicly that he wants to get it done. But Willie's not signing for peanuts. I mean, he's going to make money. It's at least 8.5, if not more than that.
Yeah, it'd be more than that.
Probably more than that.
Yeah.
So if it is, and yet you also connect some dots and say, I got to kind of overhaul a defense core. How is that going to work? How do you accomplish both?
It's going to be tricky, yeah. And as far as Nylander is concerned, both sides have acknowledged that there's a willingness to continue to talk over the course of the season. And both sides have said it could happen very quickly with a phone call. Well, what that means is one side says, okay, we'll do the deal. That's the parameters of the deal that's been discussed. I mean, the smart money is probably that it's going to take a little bit of time.
You guys, when you brought up 8.5, and I think you both agreed that it's going to be more. I just don't understand how the Meyer deal in New Jersey, aren't they kind of similar players? And Meyer had a 40-goal season.
But he's not comparing himself to Meyer. He's comparing himself to Marner.
I know, but it's just, I kind of get weirded out by it a little bit where I'm like, that guy signed for 8.8, and then we're talking about a couple $1 million, which in Ottawa is a big deal right now. But it's just like Nylander gets $2 million more, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah,
I find it weird to have.
If you're Brad Treliving, that's exactly the position that you're taking. You're using Meyer as one of the many comps, and if you're Louis Gross, who represents Willie Nylander, you're using the data that you have in hand in-house with some of the other pieces that they've thrown big money at and saying, okay, hold on a sec, it's time. He needs his piece.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what it is. The comparables are one side's using the league, the other side's using the internal, like, hey, you paid that guy this much. And
it's only Toronto that is subjected to that, more or less. I mean, I can't think of another example to this extent.
I mean, there are other examples, but they're on the other side. It's like the Boston model. It's the Tampa model. The examples are, okay, that guy's making, what does Kucherov make? 9.5.
Yeah.
And
Vasilevsky 9.5, 9.5. I think they all have the same
that's the bar. You know, and
that probably factors in Jersey. Like Jack Hughes signed, I think, 8 years at 8.5. That's an unbelievable deal.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And there's probably an understanding. And listen, Meyer, that's reasonable. Meyer is not a superstar. He's not a top 15 player in the league.
Neither is Nylander.
No, exactly. They're both really good players.
Really good
players.
Really good players.
It's a fair comp. It is a fair comp. Yeah.
But it just,
I don't know. I find it weird how one guy, it's like, no, I don't get that deal. I get $10 million. It's like, well, why though?
And that's probably why it's not signed yet, because they're both trying to figure that out.
We woke up tomorrow and he signed a 7-year extension or 8 years or whatever at 9.25. Like, don't you think everybody would be happy?
You'd think everyone would be pretty happy with that.
Like, to me, it's something with a 9 in it.
Well,
look, I've just thought that.
We know Tree has had the face-to-face, probably a couple of them already with Willie. I mean, that's kind of what GMs are doing now, right? Cheveldayoff acknowledged having that with Scheifele and Hellebuck. And you do that, so did Adams with Dahlin before he got his mega deal.
So was that a meeting with the two players without their agents?
Yes.
And is the agent aware that meeting goes on?
Yeah, the agents aren't boxed out. There'd be conversation along that. The reason you do it, and Kevin Adams told me point blank, he had multiple conversations, face-to-face meetings with Rasmus Dahlin, but he's not talking about numbers numbers and negotiating terms. What the conversation is how you're building the team moving forward and making sure that your vision of what this team is going to be aligns.
Right.
So Brad, I'm sure, has had that conversation with Willie, and he'll probably have more. Willie, if you want more money, there's no question you're going to get more money on the open market. But you have to visualize, where is that going to be?
Right.
You want to live in Arizona? I mean, it's a nice time, 10 months out of the year. Or do you want to stay and finish what you've been part of in the build in Toronto? And if the answer is I want to stay, sorry, but you're third, fourth guy on the list here of these extensions that we've had to go through.
Right.
You're going to have to leave it a little bit on the table.
With Darren Dreger, TSN Hockey Insider, we mentioned this earlier that Jay Woodcroft, the head coach of the Oilers, has decided not to announce who's starting tonight in net, even though Jack Campbell left the pregame skate early.
Yeah.
I can't understand this, Dregs. Like, at what point does the league have to step in now that they're in bed with gambling and fantasy?
So ridiculous.
Just announce who's going to start.
Yeah.
Like, why is it such a big issue?
It just draws more negativity than it does anything else.
Right.
Right?
It doesn't do anything positive. There's no benefit from doing it.
And in fact, I think it amplify like it now.
It draws attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure it does. I talked to somebody in Edmonton yesterday associated with the team who said almost choked when I told him this about 15 minutes ago that Jack Campbell has been really good. Now it's preseason, so let's be careful on how high we move the meter. But that tells me that that's the way they're thinking. They're invested in Jack. They know that Stu Skinner is going to be the goalie of their future. You start Skinner right out of the gate here. What kind of message is that sending? I don't know. So to that point, in bolstering, I think what you're saying here, Brian, it just fans the flames for Woodcroft not to say Jack Campbell is getting the net out of the gate.
Yeah, we had a great camp, and he's going to start, and Skinner will start game 2, and we move on from there. It's all good.
I said, you've got a win-win here. Start Campbell.
Yeah.
And then start Skinner on the weekend in the home opener.
Yeah.
Way you go. And both of them have starts.
Yeah.
And then let's see how this unfolds for the season because
just
that team is in their window, just like Toronto, just like a
Yeah.
handful of other teams. This is must win now. So to me, the best guy who's playing, you're playing.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
But both of them have to get an opportunity early on.
Yeah.
It's got to be 3 or 4 starts to establish your season. It's not just one and done.
No.
So I like the fact that Jack's getting the start. There is even a pecking order, but it's also an opportunity to go, hey, maybe what the coach did say in the preseason, like, this is an open net. Go get it.
Yeah.
If he had a better camp, then he should start.
Exactly. So
Absolutely.
I think it's a...
Which, again, the goofiness of not saying. Like, it's right there on a platter. Woodcroft, he had a great camp. He won it. He starts tonight. Doesn't mean anything beyond that for the next 81 games.
Yeah.
Do you have a prediction on points this year for McDavid? Everyone else seems to. Everyone thinks maybe 160, 170. Is that in the wheelhouse?
Not for me. I mean, 150, pushing 160, maybe 170's
crazy.
That's a crazy number for me. It is
crazy. These guys got him 217 points. 216 is the record. 215.
No, Gretzky was 215 or 212. 212, I think.
He had 215, I believe. I think he had 212.
I just don't know what
215.
you've seen in the past couple of years where you could say to yourself, like, nothing's stopping this guy. He's a machine. He's a hockey machine.
I know he is. Yeah. And if he scores 140, he's still a machine.
I would agree with
that. He's not a machine, then. He's not a human with 55 goals and 140 points.
There's 10 items in the National Hockey League that you're going to have to apologize at the end of the season that you have blinders on. Probably like when you played hockey and you just don't see it.
High and hard, dump and change.
He has been.
Nothing wrong with that.
Everything is just not happening. And he throws his hand up, and it's not happening.
Take Harry.
Is that right?
The first 2 weeks.
Very realistic, Harry.
No, I'm not
realistic
saying that
Rick.
it's not.
That's why he's on Sports Center.
I know, like literally, he's on
Sports
Center every day. It's like
realistic.
Him and Gino just nose to nose yelling at each other. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's right. I'm right. I'm Willie Nylander. I'll negotiate throughout the season. I got no problem with that. Yeah, Gino and I, we're getting heated.
I love
That'll
it.
continue.
Yeah.
I look forward to that, actually.
No, it's
all right, Dregs.
All right, boys.
See what we got tonight. Good seeing you.
You too.
There's Darren Dreger at TSN Hockey Insider. All right, Leafs Habs coming up right here on TSN Radio. We'll tee it up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, pregame starting up here. You got the Tap Man down there. You got Frankie down there.
Hat Man is going to be on fire
Yes,
tonight.
he will. Joe Bowen, Jimmy Ralph with the call right here on TSN 1050, the home of the Leafs. Going to be a good one tonight.
How many
Leafs Habs.
ice creams? I think Tatman will
lot.
have 3 ice creams in him.
Jimmy sent me
lot.
a note today and said they're not doing the ice creams anymore.
Really? The Leafs have
I don't
rescinded
know.
that offer?
That's what, or
That's a
maybe
shame.
Jimmy meant that he's not doing the ice cream.
Maybe he's got a new approach, new diet. I don't know.
No, he's doing the ice creams.
If they're there, I think he'll
You have to.
probably
They're right
succumb,
there.
Right?
in your
Yeah,
back
you
pocket.
probably have to.
It'll be a good game tonight.
Yeah, it will
I
be.
like these two teams always, for the most part, don't disappoint. Those games are
They're generally
regardless of
fun
where-
games.
Yeah, regardless of where they are in the standings,
That
they're always
Anderson,
pretty good.
man. In this slot, he's going to
Anderson scores every time in Toronto. He does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got a few baseball games tonight. You see the AL East went 0-7 in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was.
Like
Baltimore got
Baltimore got smoked.
Yeah.
They didn't just get swept; they got destroyed.
No.
It was weird, like to see these
Crazy.
teams just fall, like and get dummied.
Yeah.
What about Texas, though, dude? It's like they were left for dead. It's like they won that series in Toronto. They swept that series. And then they absolutely hit the skids, and now they're on top of the world
But they were a good team.
They were great
all year.
through like the middle of August. Remember, like before that series in Toronto, they were terrible coming in.
Yes.
They were a mess.
They had all hit the skids.
Absolutely.
Every team around the.
And they barely
Blue Jays.
got in. Like Houston
Yeah.
won the division. They backdoored their way in because Seattle puked it away.
Seattle.
Like it could have been that. It's just like Florida last year. Like Florida was that close to missing the playoffs, and then they go to a cup final. Texas could do the same thing.
Florida was a Pittsburgh win against Chicago away
being
from
out.
missing the playoffs.
Yep. And it's amazing how that changes everything in terms of projections this year. They
Right.
missed the playoffs last year. I think a lot of people would say 85 points, they miss it this year. Like a
Florida,
lot of
you mean?
Florida.
Yeah, yeah.
But cup final, it's like, they're in the playoffs.
Well,
Like they do seem to be the team where like they barely made it and they got injuries. Montour, Ekblad banged up. What's Bob going to be again over 82?
well,
I don't know.
I don't know. I watched them. Like I like some of their young players. That Lundell is a really nice player. Like, and is Kachuk going to let that happen? Like Barkov didn't have a great start. Like they had a really
Barkov's
poor
gotta be
regular
better,
season.
for sure.
I think maybe they have a better regular season. They had a poor regular season last year. Maybe they have a better regular season this year, but don't go as far, type of thing. Spencer Knight back after
They sent him down, didn't they?
but they're going to get him playing. He looked decent when I watched him play, so I think they're going to be fine. But I don't see them as which is weird. They went to Cup final as the upper tier.
They're going to
see
need
them in the second
Bobrovsky
tier.
to absolutely like hold the fort down.
Yep. Seems
Yeah.
that way for sure.
Yeah, should be good though. Any predictions on the Canadian side, like Calgary, Winnipeg tonight?
Kind of like Calgary.
I do too.
I like Markstrom to have a bounce back. I think he will. Like he's been a yo-yo his whole career.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking over the course of the season, not just tonight.
Right,
I think he bounces back.
Statistically.
And I think if he does, like they got to get that Wolf kid up though at some point, don't they?
Yeah, I think
Vladar's
Vladar
starting.
is going to be a trade piece at some point. If you can get Markstrom playing to his capability, Wolf starts the season down. Within a month or two, you can trade Vladar if you can find a 3 and have Wolf come up and learn from Markstrom. Because
Perfect
this Wolf
setup.
kid's going to be a player.
Yeah,
He's
perfect
good.
setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the nightcap, Edmonton, Vancouver.
Vancouver's
could
got
be
a
a shootout,
flu
man.
going through them. I
Yeah.
thought I read that Talk said that some of the guys were.
There's some game time decisions,
Yeah.
and like Demko's had so many injuries.
Yeah.
Like that's the guy. They make the playoffs if he plays great.
Yep.
That's it for me. If
Yeah.
he's average, I think they miss the playoffs and possibly by a fair amount of points.
Well, he's a rock star. We'll see if he's
Yeah, he's got to play 55 games for those guys to be
easily
good.
Yeah.
Stand on his head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's he can play 55, 60 games, and he's a great goaltender. But, again, you're looking at that division. Like, only a certain amount of teams. Like, I look at the Atlantic. There's probably, you can make a case for, six teams? Like, if Ottawa takes a step, if Buffalo takes a step, if Detroit, like, there's only a certain amount of teams you're going to make it, right?
5 total is all
5
you can
total,
get.
the most you
More
can
than
get.
likely, it's 4.
4 and 4, yeah. So who's coming out? Like, that's, or who's not just going to get there?
Right.
That's the question is,
We'll
is
find
one
out
of these
starting
teams gonna
tonight.
fall short. Yep.
We will.
Yeah.
We haven't had time to get into this. We'll get into it tomorrow. The NBA is releasing their own data. Load management doesn't work.
Yeah.
According to the NBA, Like, actually, now we've looked into it. Joe Dumar's saying, yeah, it doesn't actually work that much. Sitting guys, it does nothing for the projection of health and how people are going to perform.
How are you proving that?
Well, and my guess is the players will say, cool, awesome story. Thanks so much.
Well,
Don't care.
the data speaks
Still
to
not
it.
playing.
The data speaks to it. So.
Yeah, the data. Big data, guys. All right, we're out of here. Leaf game coming up next on TSN Radio. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.